Hey everybody, what's going on? Your host, LovelyCheesePizza here. Welcome back to Let's Play some more... I almost said Resident Evil. It's still early in the morning. I've not been awake for very long. I actually got to spend the majority of my night fending off a crazy fucking, like, infestation of sugar ants in my bedroom that I don't know how they even got in there, because we don't really ever eat food or, you know, leave that type of stuff in our bedroom very much, so it's like, what the hell? But all of a sudden, we're watching a movie in the bedroom last night, and I went to go reach for my phone charger because I had to plug it in because I just got done with my golf class qualifier tournament thing, and I reach over and I was like, oh, there's a ant crawling on my charger. That's weird. And so I brush it off and I plug my phone in, and I look over and there's another one crawling on like the cord, and I'm like, oh dude, what the fuck, there's a couple ants in here. And then I look on the wall and they're just everywhere. I mean, they're crawling all over the walls, they're all over my nightstand, they're crawling in my bed, and I'm just like, ah, shit. Because like, it's been a pretty long while since we've had, you know, an outbreak of sugar ants in the house. We used to have them all the fucking time when my grandma was alive, because she had a really bad habit of leaving food containers and stuff open in the pantry and just all over the place, and so the ants would be like super attracted to that shit. But it wasn't really as much of a thing once, you know, she moved out of the house, because, you know, we took better care of not having that be a problem. But dude, this was so awful, and so I went and grabbed, you know, like a wet paper towel, and I just started massacring these fuckers. I just started killing as many of them as I could kill, and I, you know, grabbed I grabbed our little spray bottle, and I put a bunch of peppermint oil in there, because ants can't stand the smell of peppermint oil. Because I couldn't bust out like the Raid or anything like that, because we were trying to, you know, we had Harrison in the room, and we were trying to get him to go to sleep. I'm not gonna load up the room with the sweet smell of pesticide. So I just had to, you know, I was like, I gotta find other ways around this. And so I literally spent the next like 3 hours just killing more and more and more of them. It seemed like every few minutes or so, I'd look back and there'd still be like 5 or 6 more of them crawling around, and like they were on the carpets, and they were, ugh. I fucking hate those things. Like, you see them and they make you, like, they make you involuntarily start itching. Like, it's like a psychosomatic thing. And, like, I hate ants more than just about any bug, because they don't fucking do anything. They're so pointless. You know? Like, they're basically like, you know, they're like diet cockroaches, basically. Like, cockroaches don't really do much of anything. They're just fucking gross and annoying. And it's the same thing with ants. Like, they don't do anything. They're just fucking annoying, and they get all up in your stuff, and they get in the way, and, you know, and then you just feel fucking dirty for having had them in your space, and it's just, ugh. And so, you know, I couldn't sleep worth shit last night, because I kept thinking, you know, at what point during all this am I gonna wake up and I'm gonna, you know, find that there's like a bunch of ants like crawling on my face, or like they're in my hair, or, you know, ugh. And so I did not sleep very well at all. But we're calling Terminex, and those fuckers are gonna feel just the craziest thorny doom that comes from the finest grade pesticide sprays, and like probably like that weird taro gel stuff that they put on the little sticky paper, and they take it back to their, you know, back to their fucking Nazi ant leader, and, you know, they feed it to him, and he's like, oh, thanks for bringing me the shit, this is delicious. Ah! And then he, you know, bursts into flames and explodes. I'm fairly certain that's not how that works, but I would like to imagine that it does. Oh shit. The San Francisco Giants picked up Kevin Pillar from the Blue Jays. That's a huge get for them, at least defensively. Kevin Pillar's amazing. It's that dude? Like, that dude's robbing home runs and getting all the crazy diving catches and stuff everywhere. The question is, can he hit? So that's the Giants' problem. They're pretty good defensively, but those guys couldn't hit their fucking way out of a paper bag if they had like a serrated edge bat. Like, those guys are terrible in that respect. But yeah, dude, it was all bad. So no fucking good. But I was gonna talk about something. And this is like a really vulnerable thing for me to talk about, because I've never really experienced much stuff like this before. But it happened to me. It was 2 weekends ago now. But I feel comfortable enough, you know, talking about it. At least not in full detail, because there's obviously details of it that I'm not comfortable going into, but I can still do it on like the general premise of itself. So, a couple of weekends ago, it was a Friday night, and you know, I went to sleep. You know, Michaela and I went to sleep, and it was just like a pretty normal course night. Like, had a pretty regular evening, no big deal. Put Harrison to bed, you know, watched a movie and went to sleep. About 2 hours after I went to sleep, I woke up, and I had had a nightmare that was so wildly realistic. Like a lot of times, like, you can have a nightmare and, like, obviously it's scary, but I feel like somewhere in the confines of your brain can still, like, differentiate between the fact that, you know, between, like, reality and dream. At least I feel like that's how that works. But this dream that I had was so wildly, like, hyper realistic that I couldn't blur the line there, you know, I couldn't really differentiate between real and not real. So that when I woke up, I was absolutely freaking the fuck out. Like, I'm not gonna talk about what the dream was, because it's not one that I feel at the liberty of talking about. But, oh, dude, and so what happened was, you know, after I woke up from this thing, I basically had a horrendous full-scale anxiety attack. Like, it was really, really bad. And I've had maybe like 2 of those in my entire life, but this one was so much worse than the last one that I had. And the worst part is like, I was so embarrassed that I was having it. And this is probably just the part of me being so inexperienced with anxiety, because I mean, I've had anxiety for a long time, but it's usually in such a low functioning capacity that usually if I, you know, get stressed out or I have some anxiety, like, I can usually handle it on my own pretty well. Like, it's usually not crippling to the part where I feel like I can't function. But this one was so much different. But I took the same mannerisms in trying to handle it like I would any other time I ever had it, which was the wrong approach to take. So I mean, I just tried to take a deep breath, just tried to relax, tried to go back to sleep and sleep it off. And that could not have been a worse idea, because, like, my chest was pounding so much, I felt like I was gonna fucking die. But I was so embarrassed by what was going on, and that I didn't want to wake up Michaela and you know, tell her, like, this is what's going on. Like, I'm having a fucking, just a absolute motherfucker of an anxiety attack, and I need your help. You know, I think it was, you know, probably just, you know, kind of the stigma of just like, oh, you know, I'm a man, I should be able to handle this on my own. Like, you know, I can't be that weak that I need, you know, that I need help getting over this sort of thing. And it absolutely ruined my fucking body and my brain for the entire night. I couldn't go back to sleep. I couldn't, you know, turn the anxiety off. My chest was constantly just in my chest. Like, it was, my heart felt like it was about ready to explode into a billion pieces. It was just, so awful. To the point where it eventually got around like 8 o'clock, like 9 o'clock roughly, to the point where I was gonna have to go to work. And I was like, I have to tell her, you know, what's going on, otherwise I'm not gonna get any help here, and I'm gonna be even more of a fucking wreck trying to be at work doing this. And so I finally woke her up and I told her what was going on, and like while I was telling her, I just started like convulsing and I was like shaking and I was in a cold sweat. It was so awful. It was so horribly debilitating, and like it was like freaking her out really bad because she's only seen me like that like maybe one other time, but this one was so much worse than that. So like I felt even worse about it because it's like, well, you know, now I told her you know what was going on, and now I've like thoroughly scared her fucking senseless because, you know, she has high functioning anxiety, so she knows all of how this works. And so her seeing me that way, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, well, now I feel worse because now she knows what's going on, and now I have to worry about her worrying about my condition, and so I feel bad about it. And oh, it was awful. But what's worse is that I ended up having to go into work that day because, you know, we didn't have anybody else to be at the store, and, you know, my dad was also going to be there working with me, but he had a bunch of things that he had to be doing that day, and there was no other time for him to do it, and so I had to basically try to power through the day while my mind is in just this absolute fucking just basement of despair and doom. Oh, it was so awful. And, like, I felt the effects of that for at least, you know, well, I felt it all through the entire rest of the night, and then, you know, I had to be by myself for the majority of the evening. Like, I was able to hang out with my brother for a while, but everybody was gone, and so there's nothing worse than trying to handle your own anxiety when you're left to your own devices and you don't have somebody that, you know, help you work through the course of your misery, if you will. But I didn't want people worrying about me because that's, you know, exactly how it was going, was that everybody was freaking out. And so I felt really guilty, and I was just like, don't worry about me, like, I'll be okay, you know, you guys go out, and because everybody had plans. I didn't want to be that guy that ruins everyone's plans because I'm in like this horrible mental state. And so, you know, I ended up having to deal with that, which is the only, I mean, the only positive thing that really came out of that night in and of itself was the fact that I finally broke down, and I was like, you know what, the only thing that I can really do for myself that might bring me a little bit of joy while everybody else is out doing their thing is I'm gonna go break down and I'm gonna go buy myself an orange vanilla Coke because I have to fucking know whether it's good or it's not. And it was delicious. It was absolutely amazing. If you've not had it yet and you like vanilla Coke, then you should buy it, because that's basically 95% of what it is. Like, orange vanilla Coke is 95% vanilla Coke, and then it's just like this little tiny tinge of orange on the end of it. It is absolutely delightful. I heard the commercials for it, and I was just like, dude, like, I get what they're going for with like the whole creamsicle thing, but creamsicle and then cola, I don't know if that's gonna work for me. But, you know, I end up doing it, and it's just like, holy shit, this is fucking fantastic. You know, why didn't they think of this sooner? And so, yeah, it was really awesome. So if you haven't done it yet, I highly advise it. But yeah, dude, and then just the entire next day, I was still so wiped out from it. Like, my mental state was a little bit better, but I was just so depleted from it. And it took me until, like, you know, almost like fairly late evening the following day before I really kind of felt like I, you know, came back online and felt, you know, myself, I guess. Because I felt like so zombified after it. Like, it took so much out of me physically and emotionally that I felt kind of just like a husk of a person for a while. Which, you know, after that happened, I'm sitting here thinking, like, how in the hell are there people out there that can be like this all the time? Like, my wife is she has high functioning anxiety, and I mean, she deals with stuff like this all the fucking time. And I don't know how she does it. I really don't. Like, I feel so awful for her that she has to deal with this type of thing. And that, you know, that people don't acknowledge mental health issues for, you know, what it really can be to people. You know, I never really had that type of understanding about it until that exact moment, because, you know, I've never had to really deal with an anxiety attack that really just took the entire wind out of my sails and just fucking destroyed me. So it was really bad. But And like I was really kind of debating whether I really wanted to talk about this with you guys or not, because it's like a really sensitive thing for me. Like it's a really vulnerable thing to talk about. But yeah, it was really bad. Like I've always been afraid that I'd have a dream that would do something like that to me. Like it would affect me so, because my dreams, it's like a gift and a curse at the same time. Like I've always, you know, had this ability to recall my dreams I feel like to a higher frequency than other people that I know. And I've always been able to do it with such like excruciating detail. But I've also learned, you know, as you guys have heard on a lot of different occasions, especially when they're nightmares, being able to recall them in excruciating detail like that is a double-edged sword, because unfortunately the bad ones, you recall them so vividly that it just, you know, it sticks with you. And that exact scenario is what made that so much worse for me, because I also couldn't stop remembering what was going on. It was so not cool. So yeah, that was that whole thing in a nutshell. I wanted to share that with you guys. You know, I share a lot of things about my personal life with you guys, because, you know, I feel comfortable doing that with you, because, you know, I've made a lot of friends here, and you know, I treat a lot of you guys like family. And so it's something that, you know, I don't know, maybe somebody out there is, you know, having anxiety issues of their own, and I don't know, maybe just hearing that somebody else is going through it too, maybe could be useful for them. So if you're out there and you deal with that type of stuff, just, you know, you're not alone. Even people out there that don't seem like they'd ever go through that sort of stuff, they do. You know, when I told my parents what happened, it blew them away, because they didn't even know that I really dealt with anxiety stuff. They're like, "You had an anxiety attack?" Like, I didn't even know that you even dealt with anxiety. I was like, "Oh, sure." I mean, it's usually not very bad. Like, it's generally, you know, nothing that's really, you know, anything that's super serious. But, you know, when I do get it, it can be really bad. But I've never really felt comfortable talking with them about it, you know, because I never wanted them to kind of have that feeling of like, oh, well, you know, not like they like love me less or anything, but, you know, feeling like, you know, they have to act differently around me out of the fear that, you know, if they were to do something that might like trigger anxiety for me, I don't know. So it's like I always never felt comfortable talking about it with them. But when that happened, I was able to tell them, and they're just like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, what can we do to help?" And it's like, it's nice that it didn't freak them out to the point where they didn't feel like they could, you know, they didn't know how to help. You know, just the fact that they wanted to offer help is really all I actually needed from them. So it was cool. So yeah, that's what that was. I mean, I'm sure you guys were probably looking for something a little bit more lighthearted in an episode of this, instead of, you know, something like really kind of dark and depressing like that. But anywho, what was that car that we got? We got a new one. I just don't. Oh, it was a 206. Okay, well, that's cool. That's a cool looking car. I liked those. So yeah, when we're gonna stop right here. When we come back on the next installment of Let's Play Gran Turismo 3, the Ultimate Driving Simulator, we'll move on to some more rally races. Again, really enjoying those. I feel like we've kind of fully hit our stride on that, where we can comfortably do those and not feel like we're just gonna get slammed by the competition. So we'll keep moving through this, and when we come back, I'll have something probably a little bit more positive to talk about than that. So. Yeah, with that said, my friends, this is your host, LovelyCheesePizza, saying thank you guys for watching, and take care out there, everybody. And have a good one.